Hi, dear grade 7 students, welcome. Welcome to our science class. Materials required to discuss our lesson: your interactive science textbook, copybook, workbook, and pen. Get ready with the materials. Grade 7 students, are you ready? Are you ready to our lesson? Then follow the textbook page number 448 to 455. Chapter 12, Earthquakes, lesson number 1, Forces in Earth Crust. Our lesson objectives: explain how stress in the crust changes Earth surface. The second objective: describe three major types of faults. Compare and contrast the land features that result from plate movement. A few new words for you: stress, tension, compression, shearing, normal faults, reverse faults, strike-slip faults, plateau. We know many information about Mount Everest in the Himalayas. It is the highest mountain on the earth. Can you answer, how long do you think it took Mount Everest to form? How does stress change Earth's crust? You saw many different types of rocks. Rocks are hard and stiff, but the movement of the earth plates can create strong forces that slowly bend or fold many rocks. But beyond a certain limits, all rocks in the earth's brittle upper crust will break it. Forces created by the plate movement are examples of stress. Stress is a force that acts on rock to change its shape or volume. Geologists often express stress as a force per unit area. Because stress increases as force increases. Stress adds energy to the rock. The energy is stored in the rock until the rock changes the shape or volume. The three main types of stress: tension, compression, shearing. You can watch the diagram of each example, how they are formed and what are the shape of that one. Tension. Look at the diagram. Rock in the crust can be stretched so that it becomes thinner in the middle. This process can make rock seems to act like a piece of warm bubble gum. The stress force that pulls on the crust and thins rock in the middle is called tension. Tension occurs where two plates pull apart. The second type of stress is called compression. Look at the diagram. One plate pushing against another plate. Tension can squeeze rock like a giant trash compactor. The stress force that squeezes rock until it folds or breaks, it is called a compression. Compression occurs where two plates come together. The third type of stress is called shearing. Look at the diagram and the movement of the rock piece. stress that pushes a mass of rock in two opposite directions is called shearing. Shearing can cause rock to break and slip apart or to change its shape. Shearing occurs where two plates slip past each other. Now it's time to check our second objective. How do faults form? What are the different types of faults? Fault is a break in the rock of the crust where rock surfaces slip past each other. Most faults occur along plate boundaries where the forces of plate motion push or pull the crust so much that the crust breaks. When enough stress builds up in rock, the rock creating faults. There are three main types of faults: normal faults, reverse faults, strike slip faults. We already discussed the three main types of faults. The first one is normal faults, reverse faults, and strike slip faults. Look at the diagram and observe the direction of the movement of the rock. It's a time to check how the normal faults are formed and how they are moving. The Rio Grande River flows through a wide valley in New Mexico. Here the tension has pulled apart two pieces of earth crust, forming the valley. Where rock is pulled apart by tension in earth crust, the normal fault is formed. In a normal fault, the fault cuts through rock at an angle, so one block of the rock sits over the faults while the other block lies under the faults. In normal faults, the block of the rock that sits over the faults is called a hanging wall. The rock that lies under the fault is called a footwall. The diagram of the normal fault in the figure show how the hanging wall sits over the footwall. Let us to check the movement of the animation in the diagram. When movement occurs along a normal fault, the hanging wall slips downward. Normal faults occurs where two plates diverge or pull apart. Now we can check the second type of faults, reverse faults. Look at the diagram. A reverse fault has the same structure as a normal fault, but the blocks move in the reverse direction. That is, the hanging wall moves up and the footwall moves down. The reverse fault forms where the compression pushes the rock of the crust together. Now we can check the third type of faults, strike slip faults. Look at the diagram and check the movement of the rock pieces. Shearing has produced a strike slip fault. In a strike slip fault, the rock on either side of the fault slip past each other sidewise with a little up or down motion. A strike slip fault that forms the boundary between two plates is called a transform boundary. San Andreas fault is an example of transform boundary. Once you observe the picture for the strike slip faults, you can see the left one is little up and the right one is little down. This is the main characteristics of the strike slip faults. Now we can check our third objectives. How does plate movement create new landforms? I know you saw many kind of landforms in Saudi Arabia. Most changes in the crust occur so slowly that they cannot be observed directly. Then you could watch the movement of the earth plates, faults, stretch and uplift the crust over wide areas. Over millions of years, the forces of plate movement can change a flat plane into features such as anticlines and synclines, folded mountains, fault block mountains and plateaus. Now we can check one kind of land formation, folding earth crust. Sometimes plate movement can cause earth's crust fold. Then rock stressed by compression may bend without breaking. That may help to the formation of the folding earth crust. How faults are formed? Faults are bent in rock that form when compression shortens and thickens earth crust. Look at the diagram. You can see how the folding earth crust are formed. A fold can be few centimeters across or hundreds of kilometers wide. Figure shows fold in the rock that were exposed when a road was cut through a hillside in California. Look at the diagram and check how the folded rocks are formed. Now let us to check another kind of landform, anticlines and synclines. Look at the diagram. You can see the structure like a wave motion. Geologists use the term anticline and syncline to describe upward and downward folds in rock. A fold in rock that bends upward into an arc is an anticline, as shown in the figure. A fold in rock that bends downward to form V shape is called a syncline. Anticlines and synclines are found in many places where compression forces have folded the crust. The central part of Appalachian Mountains in Pennsylvania are folded mountains made up of anticlines and synclines. We already discussed the anticline and synclines. Once we look at the diagram, the compression can cause folds in the crust. The two types of folding are anticlines, which are arc up, and syncline, which dip down. The upper portion is called anticline and the lower portion is called synclines. Now we can check the how folded mountains form. The collision of two plates can cause compression and folding of the crust over a wide area. Folding produced some of the world's largest mountain ranges. The Himalaya in Asia and the Alps in Europe formed when the pieces of the crust folding during the collision of two plates. These mountains formed over millions of years. Now we can check how the fault block mountains are formed. Stretching earth crust causes the formation of fault block mountains. Look at and observe the diagram. You can see the Great Basin region contains many mountains separated by broad valleys or basins. The mountains form from tension in Earth's crust that causes faulting. Such mountains are called fault block mountains. How do fault block mountains form? Where two plates move away from each other, tension forces create many normal faults. Suppose two normal faults cause valley or drop down on either side of the block of the rock. This process shown in the diagram. Now we can check the last type of landform plateau, how they are formed. Uplifting Earth's crust leads to the formation of a plateau. A plateau is a large area of flat land elevated high above sea level. Some plateaus form when forces in Earth's crust push up a large flat block of rocks. Look at the diagram. A plateau consists of many different flat layers, and it's wider than it is tall. Look at the diagram. You can see an example of the plateau named as Kebab Plateau from the northern rim of the Grand Canyon. We already discussed that the plateaus are formed by the uplifting of Earth crust. Hi dear students, we discussed many things related to the forces in Earth crust. Now it's time to sum up our lesson. The movement of Earth plates creates enormous forces that squeeze or pull the rock in the crust. A force that acts on a rock to change its shape or volume is called stress. Three kinds of stress can occur in the crust: tension, compression, and shearing. And what is fault? And what are different types of faults? The three main types of faults is normal faults, reverse faults, and the strike slip faults. And different type of landforms we discussed is called anticlines, synclines, folded mountains, fault block mountains, and plateaus. Hi students, some questions for you. Find the answers yourself. How is stress defined in geology? How does stress in the crust change Earth's surface? Where are faults usually found? And why do they form? The last question, what land features result from the forces of plate movement? You have to do some follow-up activities. Modeling stress. You will make a model to explore how different kinds of stress create mountains and other landforms. And to do your lesson quiz in the Pearson Realize, go to the website and find out the answers. Hi students, it's a time to end up. Anyhow, thank you for watching. Good luck.